Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this exciting webinar, and which will be obviously we'll have a live interaction with Shrimoy, who made it to the Wharton Deferred MBA program. So, congratulations, Shrimoy, and thank you for joining us and
Thank you.
taking out time from your busy schedule. So a bit about Shrimoy before we begin the webinar that she has graduated from Mumbai University HR College and she specialized in financial market. I think she's done 3 to 4 internships in some of the best organizations, and she was very active on her co-curricular and extracurricular front, where she founded clubs at the college. And and then she also had her own she started her own venture, which is, I think, it's been doing extremely well. So welcome, Shrimoy, again to this exciting webinar. Most of the students are very keen on knowing more about your journey and your entire application experience, and the session will be as such that we'll be asking few questions to Shrimoy to understand her viewpoints and her insights on the Wharton application. Post that, we will be opening the session for the Q&A, where she will be answering all your queries. And with me, I also have my colleague, Chandrageet. So Chandrageet, over to you, and thank you again, Shrimoy, for joining, and looking forward for a very interacting session.
Sure. I'm also very much looking forward to it.
Thank
Hello everyone, good evening. My name is Chandrageet Lalwani and I am one of the admission expert at IMSCI. As Deepthi mentioned that we would be taking few questions about Shrimoy's journey towards the Wharton Deferred MBA admit, and then we would be taking the Q&A questions, correct? Before starting the session, right, I would want to ask few of the questions to the attendees, right? So I'll just open up poll round so we can know, a detailed understanding about who all are attending today. So I'll just start the poll. I want all of you to please answer this. Here you go. So I'll give you 1 minute to answer this question. So guys, please answer these. I hope my screen is visible and you can access the poll. All right, great. So I'll just end the polling here. Interesting results, right? As I can see. So most of you are, planning for, like, you're playing smart here, huh? Opening all the options. That is a good part to do, right? That you are open to the options of MBA, MIN in India as well as in abroad. So yeah, that is a perfect thing that you guys are aiming for. So wonderful to know these details, right? Thank you so much for answering these questions. So we will start up the session. So Shimoy, we would be asking you a few questions today, right? So Deepthi, do you want to go first with the question?
Sure, Geet. Thank you so much for attending the poll. Interesting insights. Hi. Shrimoy, my first question to you would be, could you tell us about your background, what you were studying, and why did you decided to apply to the deferred MBA program, and how it all started?
Okay, so I think I was always interested to do a master's in any which case, whether it was an MBA or a master's in management or just something I'd always wanted to study it was always my dream to study in an Ivy League university. And so I was in my final year of college, and so I did the Bachelor's of Financial Markets from HR College. And alongside, I had completed 3 levels of CFA, and I had a lot of like extracurricular activities. I had started my own club in college, like 2 clubs in college. I was president of one club, and I was, licensee for TEDx, which was another club. And alongside, so those clubs were actually the two biggest things that I did in college. I didn't really do anything else other than that, but I focused the majority of my time here, which led to like me starting the club, conceptualizing fests, increasing the membership from like we had 20 members in the beginning, then it was about 100 towards the end. So a lot of activities for the club. And since I was studying finance, I also did a couple of finance internships. So I interned at a couple of mutual funds. I had interned at the Reserve Bank. And so towards the end of college, I then started and I got into a master's program in HR college itself. And then after that, I started teaching in college. So I was in the first year of a master's program, but I was teaching third years, like third bachelor's degree third year students. And I was their full time faculty, and I was teaching them international finance. So that gave me a lot of exposure into the teaching world, into academia. And I tried to basically understand how to teach finance from a very real world perspective, because it's a very live subject. So those were experiences that really kind of shaped my understanding of who I am. And I soon realized that I want to be in the fintech space, because I had been, alongside all this, I was also investing in the markets, trading, and I was also trading for some of my friends and family. So they were my first clients actually. And so I was doing a little bit of trading and investing for them. And so I realized that over the lockdown and everything, I realized that okay, this is something I want to do full time. And I was looking at applying for the deferred MBA program. So that became, just the kind of the perfect time, because in the lockdown, there's nothing else to do than just, be at
Correct.
home, do your
Right.
applications. So it gave me that vast, time to just sit with myself, think about which are the programs that I like the most, where do I fit in, talk to all the alums. And since I definitely, this default program really fits in with my story, because I want to do this wealth management business for a while, like in the default period, and then I want to go get an MBA, and then come back and use that expertise and everything that I've learned in the MBA back in the same business. So that's why the deferred MBA program really made sense for me. um, so that's why in the lockdown I really spent time understanding which colleges I like, understanding how which courses would fit finance, like my story the best, where would I fit in the best. And yeah, so that is about me, and that's where Wharton happened.
Yeah, right. Thank you so much for sharing, the insights. However, I still remember that you manage all these activities along with your academics, right?
Yes,
Like,
yes.
so you had a very consistent background. I guess you were always in the top 5% of the class or top two, if I'm
Yes,
not.
yes, I was in the top 5% of the class, but then it was like it didn't really feel like it. Like the activities and everything else that I was doing while studying didn't feel like, oh, I have to do this extracurricular, or oh, I have to give my time to this. It felt like a very seamless experience.
Correct.
So it didn't feel as strenuous. Like even though I was out of my house from like let's say we had college at 8 a.m. I was out till like 10 every night, and then come back and study for CFA. It didn't feel like a very strenuous thing, because I was really enjoying every single thing. I used to enjoy my classes. I was very active throughout class. I would, then go into towards the afternoons and the evenings. You'd have all the club activities, conceptualizing, planning, hosting events, and then towards the end, I would have CFA classes, and then maybe sometimes I would juggle. Like if I would not do, college activities, I would take up an internship. So it was like a lot of things happening at the same time, but it was also very seamless, and it was just fun. Like that's how I would describe it.
Right,
It was fun.
right. Great.
Yeah.
So, also one thing you said about talking to alums and networking with them. So, like, how did it happen? Like, did you connected with them through the LinkedIn or through other forums? How did it happen?
So the number one thing that I understood about connecting with alums is, first, it's a good way to connect with alums is to attend the college's webinars itself. Now, the colleges will have a lot of webinars which will be like, admissions process and things like that. But other webinars like, they have these like casual things like virtual fireside chat or virtual tour of the campus. So there also a lot of alums participate and they take those webinars. And the thing is, the people taking the webinars there are what do you call it, like they're the student ambassadors of that college. And so they reach out to you more, and if you ask them a lot of questions, they're always ready to answer everything. So those are the number one, like, most helpful people, like, when you're reaching out to alums. Always look out for student ambassadors, or those who are already in touch with, I mean, who are already looking forward to talk to incoming candidates and things like that. So number one, that. And the other thing is obviously LinkedIn. When you're reaching out to alums, the first and foremost thing I would say is that try to find someone who really matches with your background, or someone who is doing what you want to do in the future. So, for example, I really try to find out those who had a commerce background or a finance background like me, and who are going into fintech. And so I would talk to people like that, because I could ask better questions, because I would be like, okay, how did this course help you, or how did this class really make a difference, or how did this club add to you, or were you able to network, and were you able to find a job, or how does it help if you want funding. So whatever, it makes a lot of sense if you talk to someone from the same background as you. And if you are looking to do similar courses, or like classes, or similar clubs, then you should definitely look at the LinkedIn profiles, and they have a list of everything that they're doing. The other way would be to go to the college's website, click on their clubs, and get a list of all the, they even not just clubs, they also have a lot of events like conferences. So like a fintech conference, see who's hosting that, see who's the VP of events over there. So like, find out their names and then go and reach out to them on LinkedIn. That's also a good way, because if you just type what an alum on LinkedIn, you'll get like a bunch of them. But then to be able to segregate and find out who matches your background, a good way to do that would be go to the college's website, and then search them on LinkedIn, and then message them, obviously.
Yeah, I suppose that's the right way to do it. And yeah, so great advice. Do you want to share any interesting experience while connecting with them? What sort of questions do you used to ask, and
I
any interesting, any different experience you felt with some similar kind of schools, the deaf and MBA schools? Yeah.
Yes. So I would like, I had a lot of notions about Wharton and all that in general, because from whatever we hear that, okay, Wharton is a finance school, Wharton is competitive, it's pretty cutthroat, so those are things that I was a little scared about, because I I don't do well in that type of an environment. So I was a little apprehensive about that. So I will straight up ask the alums that, what is the culture like? And how, like, how is the job like, when you have they don't have a placement thing, but they have that season. So when that season is there, how's the environment like? So I would ask these questions up front, and they're also really honest and open. Like, they would openly come and tell you that, maybe this time that, yeah, there are things that can get a little listing, but it's always like it's a healthy competition. I've not heard anyone say anything scary, like, oh, this is, that could, it is it is like cutthroat, or it's like badly competitive. None of that. In fact, it was the opposite. Like, I was attending one of these virtual campus tours thing, and one of the girls there said that she was, obviously no one asked any questions, she was just talking by herself, and she was explaining how the culture is. And she was saying that, when one of us gets a job, it feels like all of us has gotten a job. Like, we after that happens, we all go out, we go for a drink, we celebrate. And it's a very like group experience. So that made me feel really good, because I was like, okay, yes, like, this environment is something that I like to be in, like something that's really positive, something uplifting. Other than that, I like, for Wharton and Columbia, the I those are the alums that I reached out to the most. and they were extremely receptive. Like if you just send out a text saying I want to get on a chat, they would just immediately say yes, okay, we can get on a call, video call. So they were very, very receptive, and that's something I really liked. And so I wanted to be in, like, I wanted to understand about one of these clubs called the Wharton Storytellers Club. So I actually reached out to the president, and also why I wanted was interested in the club because it was very it was almost like something that I had done in college. Like since I had done TEDx in college, those two clubs were similar. So I wanted to understand, how I could contribute to that club. So I got on a video call with her, and we spoke for an hour. Like we talked about college. We talked about how her experience was and what she's going to do next, and then she asked me a lot of things, and then we actually connected about a lot of things. So it was a really, I would say that, yeah, like it depends on how you ask questions, and it depends on your strike, and how you strike a conversation with who you're talking to. So it kind of depends on that, but I picked up a lot of information just like that, because the key is to just be honest and openly ask. Don't be diplomatic and beat around the bush. If there's something that's on your mind about the college, if you heard a rumor or whatever it is, just upfront ask. The more honest you are, the more honest they will be with you. And because of that, like I would genuinely ask, like I'll say that this is what I'm going to be writing about my essay, how does that sound to you? And they would genuinely give me their honest feedback, and those things really helped.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's really interesting to know because you agree that they are very receptive, they are very encouraging, and what they appreciate is, as you rightly said, being honest and being very humble. I think they
Yes,
appreciate if you have
very,
you.
yes.
Yeah, right. So that's great. That's really exciting.
Great.
I'm sure all these insights will help our students to, plan their moves or plan their conversations with the AdCom and the Alums. Yeah, over to you,
Correct.
Geet. Geet has been waiting to ask
So
questions to Srimay. Yeah.
yeah, correct. So I just go with the next question now. So, what are some of the benefits of a, deferred admission in this MBA program? So, what do you think, the best benefits that you will get or you already know till now? So, yeah,
So I think the number one benefit is to obviously work on something absolutely tension free. If I did not have a deferred MBA admit, at this point I'd be scrambling for getting a higher GMAT score, writing my essays again, probably reworking, like rethinking a lot of decisions, and being in a subtle, like in a state of stress. Like, okay, I have to apply for my MBA 2 3 years. Maybe this business is not working out. My experience is not that good. I should just quit this and do a full time job. All those worries have now gone. Like I'm just like, okay, I have to go to Wharton in or in 2 years or whatever, 3 years, as and when I feel like. I just have one job, that is to focus on my business. Absolutely don't think of anything else, like sheer focus. And that's what they want as well. If they are looking to give you an admit, they want you to really focus and do something, let's say, not if not risky, but something that you're really passionate about, that you would have maybe felt uncomfortable doing, like if you did not have an admit. Someone else in my place would probably be just doing like a job at a like a big company, just because it's the safer option. So that is number one, the biggest benefit, that you get to do what you really want to do. Like if anyone has a startup, or if anyone has wants to take up like a different kind of a role, then the deferred MBA is a great option. Secondly, you already start building your network from now. Since we all got our admits to Wharton, it's a back size of I think of like 170, 180 people, and we have a group and we have a lot of networking events. So already, I'm already in touch with people from different parts of the world, and we discuss like a lot of things. Like genuinely, I had some issues, regarding something, and I just posted it on the group saying, does anyone help me with this? And they all reached out to me, and it was just like an existing network that's already created. And we have a lot of fun events. You get to know what other people are doing. Existing network is one. And the third thing is they also have a lot of sessions. So just the other day they had the CEO of BCG come CEO BCG of one of the, I think, APAC or one of those things, and she came and did a talk and a webinar for us. They're already getting in different leaders from different industries, and they're doing sessions. So you get to learn from that as well. You can also reach out to other alums, and they'll be even more receptive to you because they're like, okay, they're already a Wharton incoming candidate or whatever, which other deferred MBA school, so they're already more receptive. So right now, if I do want to reach out to maybe a senior alum regarding a business, proposition, or maybe even like a small coffee chat to discuss something or to just network, they'd be more open to it than, let's say, if you want like it's just that they'd be more comfortable to chat with you. So your network is already building, you're already learning a lot because of attending these webinars. And the other thing is just like, having that flexibility. That was really important to me, because even though I could have applied for the MBA 4 5 years later, I knew that I would have been in a state of stress and I wouldn't have been able to, just do my what I want to do like fully, not really focusing on anything else. So those were the biggest things for me that, attracted me towards the deferred MBA.
Great. Wonderful. So, these learning, thanks for sharing, first of all, these wonderful insights, right? Because I am very hopeful that, students here would understand that how exactly a deferred MBA would benefit them in the future, right? So, let's give a flashback to your application process, right? So, how was your application process, and what do you suggest to students, right? What would be the best time for them to start? And does the last minute application makes any sense here? So can you please give us a picture about how exactly you went with your application journey?
Okay, so I would say that my applications were like, I always wanted to apply, but I never got to the essay writing process. I never really got to it because I was just delaying it, procrastinating, as we all do. That is something I absolutely do not recommend, because in the end, what happened was I only applied to 5 schools, and in those 5 schools, I couldn't do like, half the applications properly. Like I was just very rushed, and so I could only focus on 2 schools really well, which was Wharton and Columbia, and the rest I did it pretty hurriedly. So I would recommend that if you are someone who's looking to apply, then get started on as early as possible. As early as possible, because the more time means the more time for you to rework your essays, improve your CV. Last minute applications, if you really want to do it, then you just know that it'll be very luck based. Like, in the sense, like, you wrote it and it just came out to be a good essay, everything just clicked, okay, fine. But for someone who wants to feel like, okay, I want to put in the best application I've ever written, take your time, start as early as possible. uh, so the way I did it was, it's not like I took less time. I felt like it was still less, but I still took 2 months, and that is like, some people might think that, okay, that's a lot, but for me, that was actually really less. Because I remember I gave it given, I think, 15 to 20 days to my Wharton essays, and reworking the CV, rewriting the essay, talking to alums. It's a very time consuming process to research the school even. So there are a lot of steps in that, in the thing. So I would say that as early as possible is the best way to go. And if you've not um, given that much time, and application deadlines are, I know it's close. Just give as much time as you can in the days that you have coming. Don't just wait for, I mean, some fluke or some, just like, okay, I'll write it and send it. It doesn't work like that.
Correct. So I would second Shrimoy's opinion here. So guys, it's very much important to start well in advance, because these essays are not one day writing. You need time to think. You need to put across your story perfectly, and at the same time, you also need to research a lot on the university, right? Because they want an understanding that why you want to join here, right? Why basically these university, and what all things that you will at the end bring back to the university itself as being an alumni network there. Correct. So all these things are really very important, and this takes time, right? So just going towards rushing towards at the end won't make a lot of sense. So even I would recommend that it's always better to prepare yourself well in advance. You still have I believe, what, 20 days in your hand. Not even 20 days, sorry, you have 12 days in your hand to work on the application. So I would suggest that give your maximum time. If you guys are applying towards the process, then start working on the application essays and the other stuff. Yeah. So, Deepti, would you want to ask the next question?
Yeah, thank you, Shrimoy. There's one question, Shrimoy, that most of our students they need some application, some guidance on writing very impressive and compelling admission essays, or getting the right recommenders, right?
Yes.
So what are your tips? Because you've gone through the process, it'll be great if you could just share your experience.
Definitely. So, coming to the essay writing process, number one is introspection. That is something you cannot go wrong with, and that is, I think, a step that you can't miss. Uh, it's very important to know what you're trying to communicate, and know yourself very well, and proposition yourself in that way. Like I also, when I was starting my essays, I was like, okay, I just took a question and I was like, okay, write the answer. It's like how we approach an essay is just. Uh, is a that's a wrong way to approach it, because you will just be overwhelmed and you just keep on writing two three things and you'll just keep on getting confused. I would say that leave the essay question aside, take a piece of paper and introspect and write about everything that you've done, and take two three points and write about the why behind each thing. Write about why you did that internship, write about what you learned from it, write about a mistake that you made, and anything that you could have worked on. So just a couple of things for each experience, for any club activity that you've done, for any NGO experience, for any personal experiences. Never forget to think of personal experiences, and think of the whys, and write down certain like character traits from those experiences. Like, for example, if you've done something and you showed that, okay, this was a place where I've showed a lot of empathy, or this was a place where I showed a lot of tenacity or resilience. So write down all your stories like that, and write down a couple of traits highlighting from each of those things, and then you would see that there is a certain pattern kind of forming through those stories, and then you can proposition yourself that, okay, I am this person who is, pick out two or three of them. I'm someone who is very resilient. I'm someone who leads with empathy. I'm someone who also has uh, these drawbacks, like I'm not very good at confrontation, I'm not very good at, let's say, some other, like, whatever you can come up with, some whatever drawbacks of yourself, and then you can write your essay. But the thing with the essay is that you really should think of it as as communicating who you are, and fitting the school in. It's a very strategic process. It's a very logical process. It's not something that where you have to write like some beautiful prose or a really impactful story which is very moving and emotional. None of that. All it needs to be is that this is who I am. These are my strongest traits. This is where where I lack. This is where the MBA or whatever the school fits in, and this is how I can reach my long term goal with who I am currently. What I need, and how the school can help me, and where I can go. So it's a very logical and a strategic process. So you don't have to really do like an impactful essay story. Nothing of that sort. So I would say approach it in this way. So spend that time introspecting. Like, if you've not done that, if you can also just take 2 or 3 days and do that introspection process. Trust me, it'll help you a lot. And when it comes to uh, there are two essays for each school, I think, or something of that sort, where they'll ask you where what your short term and long term goals are. For that, I would say that be very, very specific, like so specific, so that when the admissions person is reading your essay, they're like, oh, okay, I can really see this person here. I went to the specific of saying that I would come here, I would go to Wharton, I would pick this course, and I would go to San Francisco in this summer, and then I would uh, attend this conference and try to network and get this. And so it was like extremely specific, so specific that they could visualize me doing all these activities. And for that, you need a lot of research. It's so thorough that something that's not so easily available on the website. Like, for example, if Wharton, I can't just write, oh, I'll do the course on in finance. Like, you know what I'm saying? It has to be I'm going to take the course on hedge fund management, accounting, like something hyper specific. So that would be my tip for the career goals essay. And for the personal essay question, be very strategic and try to communicate your personal stories very strongly. That is my two tips. For the recommendations, pick those recommenders who know you really well and who will bat out for you. This process is very competitive, and you would want someone who, even if they themselves are not like the principal of the college, or they're not like someone high up in your internship or anything, doesn't matter. Even if it's your immediate boss, just a teacher, subject teacher, it's fine, as long as they know you well, your experiences well, and they give you the best recommendation. These default MBA schools are looking for recommenders who will say something like, this candidate has one of the finest, like, let's say, analytical abilities, or she's one of the best, like best at something, like, so that is again key, where they talk very, very highly of you, and also drawing from your experiences. They're not just saying, ah, she's amazing, she's the best. No, she's the best because I saw her in this activity where I saw her doing this, and that made me realize that, oh, she's she's a really good student, like she's one of the best students. It has to be some sort of like comparison with other kids. That is another thing. And for you to get that recommendation out of your recommender, you have to prep them. So what I did was, I sat with her, like we couldn't meet, so I called her up. I gave her I shared a list of things that I had done in college, and I was like, these are the things that I would like for you to talk about, and would you be comfortable with it? So I really discussed those things with her. I said that, this is, I would like you to talk about these things. These are the experiences, and then we had the discussion. So you have to prepare them to get that best recommendation, and then also explain to them that this is a very competitive process, and I would love for you to really vouch for me. So yeah, it's about the prep, like all the back prep that kind of shows through in the front. So I would say that that's the
Correct.
tip for that.
Yeah, I think I would second that you need to really prep them and make them understand the process, and and discuss with them what you are highlighting in your application. Probably they can reinforce the same. I think, yeah, that's the key to the to having a very impressive or strong application documents. So moving to the next question. So most of our students, they start at the 11th hour, and there are many aspects, they usually underestimate.
Yes.
So what do you think, what aspect of the admission process do applicants underestimate the most, and when it comes to applying to the deferred MBA programs?
I think people underestimate the power of a good recommendation letter. Everyone's very focused on the essays, but I was on one, webinar or something with the colleges. I think it was Karambe, or I don't know, one of them, and they had said this, which really stuck with me, and that's when I was okay. I have to do the recommendations well. They said that what someone else says about you speaks 10,000 times more about you than what you say about yourself. For example, today, if I write in my essay that I am someone who's a fabulous leader, I can manage a crowd of this much, I can organize X, Y, Z, to whatever you say about yourself, okay, you say you're fabulous. That doesn't have as much weightage as someone else who's seen, let's say, many people, like many students like you, many interns like you, many whatever like you, and they say that no, she's actually the best. So for them to back that up holds a lot of weightage, that we as Indian, I don't know, just the thing with us that we think that the essays will be it's the main thing. But right now, after doing this entire process, I realize that it's the recommendations, um, which is an underestimated portion of the entire process. So yeah, I would say that you do your essays in a fairly decent manner. They're like, okay, fine, we understand the story, we understand where she's coming from. But if the recommenders really can draw from your experiences, highlight those qualities, then and then they say that she has the potential to, she's here, and I see that she definitely has the potential to go from here to here, then your application is upgraded from a level 70 to 100. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because the recommendations usually students, they start at the end. And
Yeah.
one more area I feel is the application form.
Yes.
At times, yeah, at times they just don't bother. They say that, okay, it's a simple process of filling up the the basic details. But
Uh,
when they get an access, they get to know there are a lot of limitations, a lot of requirements, right?
yes.
And at times there are short essays also, and
Yes.
now in Correct. And then you have the video interviews at times in yeah, so many business schools have a mandatory video assessment which they completely miss out. I think these are the few areas which usually the students they underestimate. So plan well in advance so that you can focus on all these areas well. Geet, you have any questions, or the next question would you like to ask Shreemoy?
Sure, I would like to ask few more questions here. So, like, this was about the application, right? So let us discuss more about your interview experience, and especially the team-based interview which happens in Wharton. So what was your experience in that?
Okay, so Dipti knows this. I was a nervous wreck before the interview. For some reason, I was just thinking that I'm gonna bomb it. I don't know. I was just very, very, very nervous. And that's one thing that they tell you not to do. Do not be nervous. And once I got into the interview thing, I was like, why was I breaking my head? It's really not one of those things where it's more of a conversation rather than, okay, why do you want to go to the school? Okay, this answer. It's absolutely not like that. It's a very conversational base. Like if you bring up certain things and they kind of it catches them, then they'll talk to you about it. So for the Wharton interview process, actually it's a little different from how the other schools are, because we have a team based interview. And so 1 week before, they give you, sorry, when you get an interview call, they give you a certain topic, and you have to, because Wharton as a school is very focused on team based activities and collaboration and things like that. The interview also reflects that. And so they want to see how well you perform in a team, and that's one of those things that they really judge you on. So they give you a task, and you just prepare a 1 minute pitch for that task, and how your what your approach is going to be, and you discuss with your team members on Zoom. And so for us it was a little challenging, because usually this happens in person. Like, I had spoken to a couple of alums, and they had to go to a hotel and really do it face to face. We had it a little easy. I mean, it was just like on Zoom, so it was not as intimidating for me because it was on Zoom. But still, nonetheless, we had challenges because I couldn't sometimes understand accents. I was not able to, there were network issues. Like, my laptop went off and all. Like, it was everyone else was also facing those problems. So it was quite a bit of a different experience. But overall, I would say that I really enjoyed that team based experience. Um, so as soon as they give you a task, someone opens and they say, like, we all finish our 1 minute pitches each. Then one of us says that, okay, should we start discussing this? And you pull out things that you liked from different people's pitches, and you try to collaborate. So you assume some sort of a role in the thing. So I assume the role of summarizing. So after everyone would say, bring up a couple of things, that I would say that, okay, you said this, she said this, are we final on this? Okay, fine, let's move on to the next point. So I would take that role. Someone else was keeping the role of timekeeping. Someone else was keeping the role of shooting down, ideas which would kill time. So we all kind of fit into roles. There were, I think, 7 of us on the call, and 3 didn't make it. And this, I think, usually happens when they want you to be very collaborative and very receptive to other people's ideas, and not someone who's arrogant or talks over people. So I saw that there were a couple of people who were trying to do that, and then they didn't make it. So I don't know if that was the, obviously the sole reason why they didn't get in, or whatever else it was. But usually they recommend that they're looking to see how well you're performing in the team. So I had read all this advice before, and I spoke with Dipti, and we discussed how to perform in the team based thing. So I assumed a role. I obviously did not talk over anyone else. Brought up people's ideas from their 1 minute pitches, tried to combine ideas. So all of those things I did. After the team based thing got done, we finished our task on time, and then we had to log out of the Zoom and then log back in after 10 on our time given time. And then we had a 10-minute one-on-one with the moderator alum. Like, he was an alum for us, so usually it could be a admissions director. For us, it was an alum. And in the 10-minute thing, he asked me what I was going to do in the deferred period, and just one or two more questions, and then he left the thing open for me to ask questions. And then I asked a couple of questions, and we were just talking. I told him I wanted to do finance. I told him a lot of things I brought up. Like, I asked very easy, like, chill questions, and he also appreciated that, and we just had a chat. And so it was not stressful. It was not some nerve wracking thing. it was a conversation, and I really enjoyed that experience. Like it made me like the school much more than I already had liked. Like I was like, okay, I love this. Like absolutely, I can see myself doing team based, uh, um, events like this, and interacting with my fellow candidates. So I just really enjoyed it. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's. I still remember before the interview, you were very nervous. You were like, "What if they'll ask me this question, that question?" But ultimately, it's all about how you, being natural, being honest, being very, that matters, and just be yourself. That matters. Be confident. I think that is what it takes. In the interview, as you said that there were questions on the what you're going to do in the deferment period. So how important is that? Because some students, who are applying this year, some of them have good offers, or some of them have their own ventures. What if you don't have a good offers, or
That's
you
okay.
are still, that's okay, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
So
I have spoken to a lot of my, the um, uh, fellow candidates and people from my cohort, and we were discussing what everyone's doing in their default period. A lot of them are not doing anything crazily fancy. Like it was actually kind of surprising to see that there were a handful of people who were doing ventures, maybe working in like some crazy fintech or some VC, like something crazy was just a handful. The maximum was actually simple, like simple full-time jobs. So it was a little like, okay, maybe they've just they can, I think the school, they basically, they before MBA they say that they want people who are doing something different, or following their passions in the default period. But it's also a way for them to catch those good candidates so that they don't apply to some other school later on. So yeah, like a lot of them are just doing simple things like normal job, like in a, like say Deloitte, PwC, accounting, like as easy as it is, like nothing too fancy. So it's absolutely fine if you're not. It's just that you have to communicate your short-term goals very clearly. Say that, okay, if you're doing a very simple job, let's say you're doing accounting at Deloitte, you communicate that very clearly and say that, okay, I'm doing this and then the MBA, and then what after. So if it ties in and it makes all sense, it doesn't really make that much of a difference if you're doing something, let's say, that's normal, like so it's fine, it's actually fine.
correct, it's fine. It's how do you like align with your career goals? Yeah,
That is fine.
yeah,
That is more
yeah.
important than, they are not saying that, oh, okay, he's doing something so simple, or she's doing something more fancy. They don't care about that, as long as they see that, okay, she has a very structured goal of where she wants to go, he or she, and she is very sure of where the school fits in, then it's all good.
Great. I think
Correct.
that's right. Great advice. Yes,
Yeah.
Geet, would you like to take the last question before we open up the
Sure,
session for
I
our
will take
students?
that
Yeah.
last question. So before that, yes, it was a wonderful piece of advice for the interview. So guys, they're not going to grill you. So, just be very calm and, give your 100% there. Be confident enough. That is what they will look for. And the other tips which Deepthi and Shimoy has shared to you. Correct. So with this, I would like to ask the last questions that what are the advice or the tips that you would like to give to the students, and what are the don'ts that you feel that students should not do while maybe in the application or in the other process.
So the don'ts, I'll start with the don'ts. I think what worked for me was really prioritizing and strategizing my entire applications. Like even though I knew that I would be a good candidate at, let's say, Chicago booth, I chose not to apply because I knew that I don't have the time, and if I sit to do apply to all the schools, I'll just end up diluting all the applications. So what I did was really picked the schools I really liked, and gave those applications a fair amount of time and worked on that. So I would say that once you're doing research and understand where you know that, okay, you're a strong candidate in the school. Let's say you're a STEM student. Schools like MIT, Northwestern, and all make a lot of sense for you. It's not to say that Wharton and Columbia and all don't, but they are already looking for people with strong STEM backgrounds. So that is one. The other don't, I would say, is that you know um, Okay, so for a do, let's say that I would just say that be very organized. It's very lost. It's very easy to get lost in the entire process and be very overwhelmed with everything. Being organized is what by that I mean that keep a keep a schedule of all your deadlines. Number one. Secondly, when you're talking to all the alums and collecting all this information by attending webinars, maintain separate what do you call it, Word documents or whatever, however you want to store it, and keep storing all that information. Keep your essays and everything in one place. Organize by also understanding that do not send the application on the day of the deadline, because sometimes the websites get jammed because so many people are applying. Keep your applications to 2 to 3 days prior. So I would say that, let's say the Wharton deadline is end of this month. You should have that. Okay, my recommendation is coming in by this date. My essays are going to be done by this date, and stick to those deadlines. Very, very key to stick to deadlines. So it forces you to be super organized with everything. If you want, keep alerts on your mobile phone to remind you of when the deadlines are. That is key. And other than that, I would just say be strategic when you're sending in an application together. Like when you're sending in an application, think of it this way: that when the admissions team committee is going to be reading it, uh, they're all they're reading is couple of essays, some recommendations, and your CV. So less words but more impactful. So with your CV, with your recommendations and your essays, you have to communicate your entire, who you are. So be very strategic and keep looking at the bird's eye view. If you're in your essays, you've written about 3 or 4 qualities of you, either use your recommenders to back that up, or talk about something else that very much aligns with what you've written in your essays. With your CV, you can show that you're someone who's very impactful, someone who's put a lot of numbers in there. Like whatever you're writing in your CV has to be very impact oriented. So it shows that, okay, this person is, it shows a lot of different aspects of you. And then the final touch of it is the application form, because it has a lot of mini questions as well. So look at all these things always remember to take a bird's eye view whenever you're doing. So say that, okay, I've written this in my essay, this is in my recommendation, this is in my CV. Okay, I can see different parts of myself through all this. Don't go into a silo and just say, okay, this is my, just look at look at it differently. So always take a step back and see how all the parts are looking. So that would be my tip for doing applications in general.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I think that's really valuable because having a synergy between and commonness of all the documents really is important. Yes, with this, I think we'll open up the session for the Q&A. Thank you so much, Srimoy, for sharing such interesting insights. Yeah, and there are quite a few questions which are already there. Maybe Geet, we can ask alternate questions to Srimoy. So yeah, so there is a question by Hemant. How well were you in academics? Do the admission committee really focus on 10th, 12th grade marks as well?
No, 10th, 12th is not there.
Yes.
Only there only no place for that. For other academics, I was pretty good at it. Like I was not the topper in my class, but I was always, let's say, top 15, top 10 sometimes, but not top 1, 2, 3. So it's good grades, but they are not too focused on it. I would say that every time you're looking at applications, there's never just one make it or break it. Maybe your grades are bad, but your internship and everything else is stellar, so it balances out. So I would say don't just focus on one thing.
Correct. Yeah. So 10th,
So,
12th,
guys,
usually not important, right? Yes.
correct. So, guys, I would request you all to post your questions in Q&A box because we won't be seeing the chat questions. So, I request all of you to post your questions in Q&A box. So, we have a next question from Ruchir. If you had to distill your advice on recommendation in 3 bullet points, what would those be?
Okay, so advice on recommendations. Okay,
Yes.
one is prepare your recommenders um, early on. If you get the sense early on that, okay, they're not someone who are going to talk very highly of me, cancel them and move on. Second is pick someone who knows you incredibly well, whether it's an internship, manager, a college, club mentor, whoever it is, someone who knows you really well. And the third thing is, I don't know, I just have 2 points, but yeah, this is, yeah, kind of it. 2 points.
Okay, great.
Great.
So that's interesting. So there are quite a few questions students have been asking about your GMAT score. So yeah, Shrimoy, over to you. If you could
So
just
I
share
did
your
not give the
thoughts.
GMAT, I gave the GRE, and I gave it much after my, what do you call it? I mean, I had already gotten in my admission, and then I gave my GRE, so I got a 318, which was not that great. But since I think for me, I had my strong academics and the CFA, strong quant, 3 levels of CFA, they probably assume that great at quant, great at everything else. So for me, the score wasn't really, so I just kind of just gave it. But yeah.
Correct. I think because of your CFA level 3 and your consistent academics, I think that really played a difference. There are questions like Saloni is asking, did you consider Harvard, Stanford, or Yale?
No, I mean, Harvard, I was like, I'm just going to apply for kicks. Genuinely, I wrote the essay on the last day. Stanford, I knew was too competitive because they take like 6, 7 in a year. So I didn't apply to Stanford. Yale, I again didn't apply because I didn't like the program. It didn't make sense for me career wise. So it was like, you have to go and then 1 year you work and then again. So I didn't apply to those two. Harvard, I did apply, but it was just like a very random application.
Yes. Great. So we have our next question. Which year did you start your application? So
I,
I,
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I was always had my eyes set on the deferred MBA. I had approached Dipti in my final year of college, so I was in my final year itself. But the whole application process, I gave it 2 months. So I always knew about this deferred MBA thing, but I never really got to working on it because I was doing a lot of other things. So I never got to doing the application. But 2 months, I gave it 2 months.
Correct.
Correct. So we have another question from Ruchir again. How important do you think your master's degree was in your candidacy to Wharton?
I don't think the master's degree was as important. It was just about me meeting the criteria. The criteria is that you have to be in your final year of graduation, and you would have had to go in it from your undergrad to your master's without having full time work experience, which I did not because I was working on my own business and I was also teaching in college and stuff. So I don't think the masters, like which type of masters I was in, held a lot of weightage. What held weightage was what I was doing with the masters and what I was doing aside from it. So
Great. So there's an interesting question by Karan Mehta. What type of internships did you do, and how much does it matter?
yes, so internships do make a difference in the sense that what you do at the internship is important. I had internships at two mutual funds and at one at RBI and one at like a smaller startup. And yeah, I think those were like 4 internships. Um, So the thing is, like, even though some were startups, some were big names, what I did at the internship was more important. Like, so through my CV, I try to communicate that, you know, this is another tip that I picked up from attending webinars and stuff. They had said that try to quantify your impact of the internship. Like, so for example, if you were at a business development role, uh, talk about how much, let's say, sales you generated, or if you were able to reduce a certain loss, or if you gave in a new idea to the management and they agreed and they implemented that. So what you did there, and if did it create any impact. If you write the internship bullet point and then you write something like how we're used to writing in like here we write like learned xyz, whatever, attended these many conferences. How is that adding anything to anyone? So you have to really write about the value you created there. Even if you've done one internship, it's fine. Just try to really focus on the value add, your personal value add, not your team's, not your everyone else's, your personal difference to that internship. How did you create value? It could be really as basic as introduced a newsletter, change timings for women, like what I'm saying. It can be really anything as long as it's impactful. So that is.
Correct. Wonderful advice, Timo. I
Yeah,
would
I
suggest. because it's very important to quantify. So
Yeah.
yeah, that is a wonderful piece of advice. And yes, what as an individual you have created an impact. These 2 points are very, very important to put across. So yeah, a wonderful advice. Yeah,
Yeah, I think I will also second that that even a small thing you do and you've made a difference, it matters. I still
correct.
remember the same advice. Nishita, one of my student, made it to Harvard, where she was working, as you rightly said, that like changing the timings for women. So even at while she was working with the L&T, which was like a very male-dominated, heavy engineering kind of a workspace,
Yeah.
and some steps she has taken to have some kind of a corner for women, for just to recreate like recharge themselves, or to have kind of freshen up. I think she started that culture, which also really worked well for her application. So I think even such things, where you are taking steps to to change the culture, and there has been some improvement, it really works. And yeah, very thank
Anything, any
yeah,
any forward initiative that you've taken, put that in your,
correct,
yeah. Don't,
correct.
I would just say that don't avoid writing things like participated in this, learned how to do, reading a balance sheet. Like I would say that skip the fluff, like really focus on the impactful stuff
Correct,
when
correct.
it comes to CV.
That's right. The impact really matters. So there is one question, like, how long did you take to prepare for the GRE?
Okay, so I've had a very tumultuous time with GMAT and the GRE and all that. So I would say that in fact I got a little lucky during the lockdown because they had waived off the GMAT GRE thing. So I had applied without a score because I didn't have one. Um, I would say I'm not the best person to talk about the GMAT GRE at all. So, like, it's a very personal thing. Like, someone, like, I thought I would do well in it because I had done the CFA and it was a very, very quantity thing. But I was not so good at the GMAT or the GRE. But someone else who's never done stuff like that just automatically picked it up. So, it's really dependent on you. I would just say give a couple of mocks, see how you're doing, and work on your weaknesses, and just keep practicing. Like, there's no one way approach to everyone doing the GMAT and GRE. It's a very personal thing. So yeah.
Correct. Great. So we have a question from Hemant that I would like to take. Are all MBA applicants sure about what they want to do in life, or does their perspective develop over the course of the MBA? So Hemant, firstly, right, first I'll talk about in terms of the application, correct? So when we do an application, so first of all, you need to have a vision because you have to know your short-term and long-term goals, not a concrete one. Let's say in time, it's going to happen that your long-term goal might change in life as far as you go with your studies and the other job perspective or other people you meet, right? So your long-term goal can be diverted, but having a vision is very important when it comes to the application, right? And when you talk about having a perspective which gets developed in the MBA, so yes, it does. You get different ideas that what you want to do in future, and actually it helps you. The MBA programs actually helps you to, you know, give you a perfect direction of where you would want to go in the future, as you already have a vision that you have to just make up in a proper way. That is what I would say in this. Yeah, Deepti, would you like to add
Shreemut.
to this question?
I think, yeah, I would also second that you need to be very sure about what are your goals. There has to be a plan in action, and an MBA will provide you all kind of launch pad and everything. I think Shreemoy, you would also agree with that, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. Like when it comes to the application process, like as clear you are, like right now, if you think that okay, you want to do XYZ after your MBA and it fits in, it's fine. But usually, what happens is when people go for the MBAs, they all interchange because there's just so much exposure to so many things that
Correct.
you obviously you end up changing it. You don't have to stick to what you wrote in your essay, and they don't expect you to. In fact, they've created an environment for you to be
right.
absolutely astounded with the variety of careers, things that you can do post your MBA. So it is in fact for you to, people do an MBA to switch careers or explore and try different things. But when it comes to the application, you need to have a very clear plan. You can't say that I want to go there and explore. But as a byproduct, that's going to end up happening in any which case.
Right.
Yeah.
So true. So we'll just take last question of Rajshri Malik because she's been asking us to ask you some questions.
Yes, sure.
So she's asking what you were doing before you got into deferred MBA, and what is the CFA level three? Yeah.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Uh, yeah,
It's
sure.
he right. Yeah.
Sure, sure. So before the before MBA, always doing the business. Like I was still running my wealth management business. I had fewer clients that time. I was not doing it in a very professional manner as I am now. Like right now, like it wasn't in a fully legal setup thing. It was just like, okay, I'm doing this on the side. While I was getting my master's, still teaching in college, I was teaching online. I was taking a much like many more classes than I already was teaching first years as well, third years, because our college, my college, HR college, had a lack of teachers, so I just stepped in and I was teaching full time. Doing applications, running my business. I was also doing an internship at Reserve Bank, so it was a research project. So as soon as that got done, that business was always on the side. It was just never a full time thing; it was a part time thing. And CF again coming to CFA level 3. So CFA is the Chartered Financial Analyst exam. It is, I mean, if you give that exam, it's considered one of those gold standard type things in finance. It's looked at a very like if you want to make a career in finance, and if certain places would require you to have that certification, but it's a very rigorous as well as um, comprehensive way to not just understand all aspects of finance, but specifically what I'm doing, which is portfolio and wealth management. It's one of those gold standard degrees uh, in this field. So it has three different levels, starting from first to the third, and with obviously increasing levels, it gets harder. It's like how your chartered accountancy in India is. It's like CFA is more oriented towards wealth management and portfolio management, and more towards finance rather than accounting. So that is what CFA is.
Yeah. Correct. And it can be pursued along with your, undergrad and the postgrad degree, right? Thank you,
Correct.
Srimoy, for sharing such great insights. It was really pleasure having with you and addressing all, student concerns and queries. It gave us also a great understanding, which will help us in, guiding our students, and most of the students attending this session are all considering applying to Wharton this year. So and thank you for taking out time, and we wish you all the best for your future. In case if you need some help, IMS is always there. Yeah. And
Thank you so much.
yeah.
It was a pleasure doing this in any which case. I remember how stressful this period was for me, and just having to talk to someone made a lot of difference. So I'm just letting everyone know that in case they do have any more questions, please feel free to reach out to me on my LinkedIn. And yeah, if you have any more questions, you can definitely reach out. It's a stressful period, but it'll be fine. Just go easy on yourself. That's all I would like to say. Yeah. But thank you so
Yeah.
much for having me. This was really fun.
Yeah, it was really fun interacting with you. And yes, Keith, thank you so much
Yes.
and take care. Stay safe. Yeah.